Street Fighter game we all played as children, right? It was one of the most classic games of its time. My personal favorite character is Chun-Li. So who is your favorite character? Welcome to leave a message in the comments section, today to bring you an animated film based on the game, Street Fighter 2, A Night of Thunder and Lightning. Stray fighters Ryu and Sagat are dueling. The strength of the two is almost the same, but Sagat is a bit unusual. His eyes often flash green, and every time the green light appeared, Sagat's attacks have also become more aggressive. Looking at the fallen Ryu, Sagat decided to launch the most powerful attack. The key moment, Ryu suddenly clenched his fist. He used his famous fighting technique, the Rising Dragon Fist. Sagat's chest was hit with a long wound. Sagat struggled to his feet. His sense of attack still did not fade. He roared and attacked Ryu. Ryu brought his hands together. This is his classic Hato fist move. With a flash of light, Sagat had fallen to the ground. A few days had passed. That day the Minister of Justice was being interviewed by the crowd. A woman suddenly appeared. She knocked down all the bodyguards around the minister. Then she jumped on top of the minister's head. With both hands, she broke the minister's neck. More and more bodyguards came afterwards. The woman was subdued. Interpol Chun-Li is in charge of investigating this case. She found out the woman's name was Cammy. She was an agent of the Intelligence Bureau, but she had somehow lost her memory. Guessed that Cammy must have been manipulated by someone using mind control techniques. This reminds them of a mysterious organization called Shadow Law. According to the investigation, Shadow Law has been collecting information on street fighters, and has used mind control to control several powerful fighters, including Sagat at the beginning of the story, Boxing Master Bison, and the Spanish fighter Balrog. According to the situation, Shadow Law organization must be plotting something. Chun-Li decided to join forces with the military to investigate. She first approached Air Force Major Guile and proposed the idea of cooperation. Guile refused to cooperate. Chun-Li has no choice but to sulk alone. Meanwhile, in the mountains far from the city, a secret base is located. This is where Shadow Law organization is based. Vega, the leader, appeared afterwards. He was followed by manipulated fighters. Vega's men showed him new research. It's a cyborg that monitors the fighters' fighting skills. It can send data back to headquarters in real time. This allows them to better find street fighters and control them. Vega was very pleased. Then he asked about Ryu, because he defeated Sagat. Plus, according to the robot's test, Ryu's potential is surprisingly high. He decided to take Ryu into his possession as well, but his men have not investigated the useful information. At this time, Ryu was training at the edge of the cliff. In his mind, he could not help recalling scenes from his youth when he practiced martial arts. He and Ken learned fighting skills from Guken, the master since childhood. Both of them are like brothers. They often trained in a sparring style. Not only that, they also regarded each other as their greatest rivals. The two of them promised to have a real fight in the future. Ryu then went to an underground fighting ring. He faced off against a strong man, but the other man was too weak. Ryu easily defeated him. Just then, a man in the audience offered to fight Ryu. His name was Fei Long, and he was a famous fighter in the neighborhood. Seeing Fei Long on the stage, the audience was immediately excited. Everyone shouted his name. Fei Long's strength is really not to be underestimated. They fought back and forth. After a few moves, Ryu's attacks gradually gained the upper hand, and Fei Long's right hand was unfortunately seriously injured. The audience became dumbfounded, but Fei Long didn't just admit defeat. He unleashed his best move. A kick knocked Ryu to the ground. Ryu's attack followed. He threw a whirlwind kick and knocked Fei Long out. After the tournament, Fei Long and Ryu became friends. Fei Long heard about Ryu's defeat of Sagat. He also talked about the organization Shadow Law. This makes Ryu very interested. On the other hand, Ken was also challenged by a street fighter. Ken was a professional fighter by now. He had stopped fighting in the street, but seeing strength of the opponent is not bad. Ken finally accepted the challenge. He easily knocked his opponent to the ground with a Rising Dragon Punch. Ken then put his hands together. The opponent was on his knees. He was convinced by Ken's strength. Ken then thought of his brother Ryu. Since the separation, the two brothers hadn't seen each other for many years. He still remembered agreement of the duel between them. This day Ryu came to a small town. The place is very chaotic. Ryu in the alleyway through. Suddenly a little girl rushed out and bumped into Ryu. The water bottle the girl was holding was accidentally broken. Ryu saw the situation and felt very sorry. He gave the girl some money as compensation. At that moment there was a sound of cheering not far away. It turned out that two fighters were dueling. One of them Ryu had seen before. That is sumo wrestler Honda. The opponent was Dalsum, a yoga master from India. he uses a special ability to hold Honda in place. The fight was about to be won and lost. At the critical moment, Dalsum stopped. Honda regained his ability to move. He took advantage of the situation and slammed Dalsum to the ground. Dalsum quickly signaled to stop the fight, and conceded defeat. He said he felt a powerful force nearby. Ryu left after watching the fight. That's when the girl found him. She was about to return the remaining change to Ryu, but unexpectedly a group of uninvited guests suddenly appeared. They knocked the girl down, and clashed with the local army. Seeing the girl fall, Ryu's anger rose instantly. He took out several people with a few strokes, but still let a survivor escape. From mouth of the army, Ryu learned the identity of the other side. It's the Shadow Row organization again. Honda then found Ryu. He offered to split the bounty he had just won. It turns out that the great power Dalsum feels is emanating from Ryu. That's why Honda won the victory. Vega's men, on the other hand, investigated a new clue. They monitored through the cyborg. They discovered the fight between Ken and the challenger that night, and accidentally discovered that Ken's moves were exactly the same as Ryu's. Vega suddenly felt very interesting, and in his mind a thought also emerged. He planned to control Ken to fight Ryu. In order to successfully unite with the army, Chun-Li found Guile alone, and revealed the reason for Guile's grudge against Vega. It turns out Guile's best friend was killed by Vega's hand. Chun-Li then said her own father also died at the hands of Vega, but she decided to put the greater good first. Guile was impressed by Chun-Li's words. He finally agreed to cooperate with Interpol. Guile investigates and discovers the robot is monitoring a fighter named DJ, so he and Chun-Li went to visit him. At that moment, DJ was teaching some punks a lesson. Guile stops him, and presented the purpose of their visit. Chun-Li also kicked the robot that was watching him to the ground, but they didn't notice. On top of a nearby building, there was another robot watching them. Data on the three of them was soon sent to Vega. He realizes the threat Chun-Li poses, so he sent Balrog to kill her. Meanwhile, in a Las Vegas hotel, a fierce battle was taking place. One is Zangief, a Russian wrestler. The other is Blanka, an orc from the Amazon jungle. Both of them are the best fighters in the world. Zangief picked up Blankab and spun quickly. Blankab was thrown to the ground in the air, but then Blanka got up again. He bit Zangief on the shoulder, and released high-voltage electrical energy from his entire body. Immediately knocked Zangief to the ground. On the other hand, Chun-Li had just finished taking a bath. At that moment, Balrog suddenly appeared before her. The two of them quickly fought each other. Balrog seriously wounded Chun-Li with his steel claws. At the critical moment, Chun-Li raised the sofa and smashed it at Balrog. She followed it up with an inverted roundhouse kick. Not only did she knock Balrog's mask off, she also kicked him downstairs. Guile also came later, but Chun-Li was already seriously injured. Guile rushed her to the hospital. At this point, Vega quickly locks onto Ken's trail. He said he would give Ken great power. Ken certainly did not agree to do so, and launched an attack on Vega, but Vega's strength was extraordinary. He easily knocked Ken to the ground. On the other hand, Guile investigated that Ken had been manipulated by Vega, so he decided to find Ryu to help first. Guile found the trail of Ryu in a remote mountainous area, but unexpectedly, Vega also appeared here, seeing his former partner Ken become the puppet of the other side. Ryu's anger level rose instantly, but Ken has lost his mind. He blocked Ryu's front. Ryu and Ken went head-to-head. On the other hand, Honda and Bison fought each other. Guile and Vega became rivals. Guile was no match for the powerful Vega. He was knocked off the cliff after a few rounds. Honda and Bison were on par with each other in terms of strength. He held on to Bison. The two eventually rolled down the cliff together. Now it's time for Ryu and Ken to fight. In the face of old friend Ryu cannot bear to lay hands on. He was also therefore knocked to the ground one after another, but Ryu still tried to wake up Ken. At this time, Ken also showed a puzzled expression. Finally, with Ryu's insistence, Ken finally woke up from the control of Vega. Then Vega suddenly appears behind him. Vega saw that Ken had lost his use, and he knocked to the ground. This makes Ryu completely furious, but unfortunately, Ryu was still no match for Vega. Vega's body is very agile. No matter how Ryu attack cannot hurt him. At the same time, Ken gradually wakes up from the coma. He was seriously injured. Seeing Ryu being beaten by Vega, Ken's heart also rose with anger. Then a miracle happened. Ken's wound has improved, and so Ken joined the fight. The two brothers did not duel as promised. Instead, they joined forces to fight the enemy. This time Vega was finally no match for them. Finally, under the attack of Hato Fist sent by Ryu and Ken together, Vega's body was turned into ashes. At the end of the story, Guile receives a call from the hospital. He rushes to the hospital. Instead, he saw Chun-Li's body. Guile couldn't help but cry from the corner of his eyes, but to his surprise, Chun-Li then burst out laughing. It turned out to be a prank on her part. On the other side, Ryu and Ken, again to the time of separation, they promised each other that the next time they met, the real duel will come, and so Ryu set off on his wandering journey again. However, a crisis is approaching him. A truck appeared behind Ryu. What is unexpected is that the person driving the truck is Vega. He is turned into a cyborg. A new adventure officially opened the prelude. Street Fighter II was released in 1994. This anime gathered all the characters you are familiar with in the game. Who is your favorite character? Feel free to leave your comments in the comments section.